What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Dolphins Daily, your daily dose of Dolphins content with your boy, Chris Kane. Let's talk about the Dolphins. Tyreek Hill is our most polarizing player, maybe aside from Tua. And he's mostly polarizing because everyone knows he's great, but we also know the end is coming. That's kind of the game with Tyreek. He's a 31-year-old receiver whose whole game is about being fast, right? So we know at some point you get slower. That's part of it. But also off the field, Tyreek is a lot. He has been better. I think in the last couple months, he's done the right things, said the right things. Minus him racing every YouTuber, but yeah, boy, we gotta get a Tyreek race. We gotta do like a hashtag or something. Hashtag race Dolphins Daily Chris Kane, whatever. Other than that, Tyreek hasn't said anything about wanting to get traded. He's trying to play to get his last probably big contract because he's 31 going on 32. I don't think you get a big contract as a receiver after 34, 35. So Tyreek is locked in terms of I need to be on my best behavior long enough to get some money. We can all agree that Tyreek's about getting his money. But that hasn't stopped people from speculating about Tyreek because no one knows the direction of this team. There's people who are like, yo, Miami's a team to beat on the low. Watch out, healthy Tua, better defense, whatever. And some team people are like, hey, this is gonna be a bad team. Tanking is on the way, starting with Tyreek. So it can go either way, right? So CBS Sports' reporter Jeff Kerr, sorry, came out with this little quote about how he sees the possible Tyreek fallout. He says, "Perhaps Hill forces a trade out of Miami at some point, but it won't be in training camp. The Dolphins are still playoff contenders when their offensive stars are healthy, and this is a make it or break it year for Mike McDaniel. They'll stay the course at the start of the year." Right? So that makes sense. That basically means that we're not about to do anything drastic right now because we can still win. And as Tyreek said, end of last season when he went on his little rant and basically threw the whole team under the bus, he's like, "Hey, I'm here to win. I don't know what them boys is doing." And then he was like, "Hey, I said too much. I was emotional." It's like, yeah, but you can't say that. Ever since then, he's been saying the right things. Like Drew Rosenhaus has been coming out and being like, "Hey, Tyreek's on his best behavior, model citizen." But it doesn't mean that their trade isn't potential, right? If this season starts to go sideways and we think, hey, we might have to liquidate some of these assets a little bit, like, hey, let's get ahead of some of these contracts. Tyreek has enough value. There are plenty of teams who wants him. I can see a scenario where that takes place. I think what we want as a team is to keep Tyreek, of course. I think what's best for Tyreek is for Tyreek to stay, of course. But as we just saw with the John Smith thing, if the money ain't moneying, it ain't happening. If Tyreek, because Tyreek's not going to want less money in his next contract. He's already getting 30 plus million right now. What's he going to say for his next contract? I'll take 3 years, 75. No, he's going to say, I want 3 years, 100 or 105 or 110. Like Jamar Chase is getting $40 million a year. I don't think he can realistically demand 40 million. I think Jamar is 6 years younger than him, if not 7 years younger than him. So I don't think he can say, give me more than that guy when that guy has his whole career to basically be what Tyreek is now. But 30 plus million, yeah. I don't think he's gonna want less money than he got last time, which is a 120. He got 30 million last time. I can't see him going below 30 million. And if anything, I gotta make a little bit more than I made last time. You know how inflation is. Let's just make it even 32. Like it's gonna be a lot of money. I would think three for 100, like 65 guaranteed type thing is where his head is kind of at right now. But if that money is not where the Dolphins see the future, it's like, hey, we can't give you 65 million guaranteed when we don't know if your speed is going to hold up for the next few years. Like I get what that comes down to. So I do not believe we'll make any trade, especially for him during now and the beginning of the year. But we get to that halfway point in the year, things go a little off the rails. I do think a team like the Chiefs, they're just always lurking. I've always kind of thought Tyreek might end up back with the Chiefs, just because Mahomes still has like a 10-year window of winning, probably in his side of him, and Andy Reid has been looking for someone to basically be what Tyreek is. They've approximated it with like three different people, but they haven't had the one person that does all what Tyreek does. So I mean, this is good news as Dolphin fans. We've had a lot of trades recently that we're kind of like on. Not trading Tyreek, maybe the best trade we can make. I mentioned on the episode recently that Zach Sealer is in line to possibly hold out because he's only making $10 million a year as one of the top D tackles, and D tackles now are making 20 million plus, and the money is just out of control. it's very difficult to say, hey, we think you're one of the top, 15, 20 at your position. We're going to pay you like someone who's ranked 30, 35, 40 at your position. Are you cool with that? Nah, that's not how the league works anymore. Like Zach getting 10.5 and 10.3 million over the next 2 years. When you got guys like Milton Williams making $26 million, it's like, bro, he's not in 1 year what 2 years of me is. He's not that good. Now, Chris Jones is making over 30 million, but again, y'all know how I feel about Chris Jones. I just think he's the best in the league. But there's a lot of guys that I'm like, hey, I don't know. I don't think, I don't think, I don't think that guy's twice as good as me, right? To make this a little bit more difficult for the Dolphins, Zach Sealer today was named as an honorable mention on the top defensive tackle list, which basically means he's not in the top 10, but he's in that next tier. Now, number 10 was from the Saints. I can't think of his name right now. Wow. Not Cam Hayward, but Kelly, I'm blanking on his name right now. He's possible Hall of Famer. Cam Jordan. There we go. I was like, I know it's Cam, but I was thinking Cam Hayward, who's also awesome from Pittsburgh, but Cam Jordan. So Cam Jordan's number 10, and no one thinks Cam Jordan's best years are ahead of him. No disrespect, but he's already cemented his legacy. He's already great. He's in his late 30s. We know where Cam Jordan is, but he's still very good. But if Zach is seen as right behind him, then that makes it worse for us. Because now having this accolade attached to it means that other people in the league also know he's a really good player. It's not like a little Dolphin secret where it's like, hey, we got a really good diamond in the rough, but we tried that with Andrew Van Ginkel and look what happened. You had a good player. They had some splashes. Like, yeah, we don't think the rest of the league knows how good they are. And it's like, yes, we do. And boop. And guess what happened to Andrew? You guessed it, all pro. So, you know, that happens sometimes where you got a guy, they realize their worth, and then they start making a little bit of noise. Zach at this point has been cool. I think he's been cool because we are negotiating a way to get him more money right now. I would guess maybe a 2 year extension because he already has 2 years on his deal now. 2 year extension, you can spread that money over 4 years. It makes more sense cap wise. I don't think any longer than that because we don't want to be paying a D tackle into their like mid 30s. But this was like when I saw it, I was like, oh, good for you. And then I was like, oh man, it's gonna cost. It's like I'm so proud of you. Ah, it's gonna be a lot of money. Like it's like catch 22 of I'm proud of you, but also this is gonna hurt a little bit. So shout out to Zach. I do think that contract's on his way, but we gonna have to pay him a little bit of money for this. Speaking of defensive tackles, we did our top 25 of the last 25 last time. We started with Ronnie Brown, and number 24 on the list is Christian Wilkins, who was another great defensive tackle for the Dolphins. You guys remember he was drafted in 2019. He was already a little bit older coming out of college. He was already like 23, but the first year and a half wasn't great. We kind of thought, oh man, this might be a bust. But in 21, 22, 23, awesome. Like awesome. I'm talking record breaking in tackles, tackle for losses. His last year with the Dolphins, he had 9 sacks. Like he could have been a Pro Bowler realistically all 3 years for sure, 22 and 23, but got snubbed because you know that's how Pro Bowls work basically. And honestly, we wanted to keep him, but he was too good for the price. It comes down to price. He ended up going to the Raiders, getting his 4 years, 84. Wish you best. Again, one of the guys currently getting paid more than Zach, Christian, because he got his money last year. And we were like, hey, how does 15 million sound? He said, I'm about to get 21. And we said, Godspeed, big dollar. What can we say to that? There's nothing when someone's like, hey, I'm going to, Vegas, I'm making all the money, and I get to be like next to Max Crosby. What can we say to that? I think Christian Wilkins, for his 3 year run, is maybe even possibly higher than 24, but because his first couple years he wasn't great. Totally understand. Like we're gonna do like a bigger sample size of what that is. And defensive tackles are tough to rank because if you're not getting sacks, people kind of think of you as, oh, you're just a clogger or you're maybe just a good, run defender, whatever. But this last year, he was out here getting sacks too. Like he was still getting those TFLs, he was still blowing the pocket up, but he was also getting those sacks. And then he had the dances afterwards. That was like one of the best attributes of Christian Wilkins is not just that he was a great player, but he was a fun player as a defensive tackle, which is not like that's not really what they're known for real. He was fun. He danced. He had great morale, but he played and he played well. And I think I can't say he was the heartbeat of the team, but I do think he was a very shiny spot on the team where there were a couple years in there where we didn't have a ton of people who were doing that. He did. He was really good at his position. He was worth all the money when the Raiders offered the contract. I don't think too many people balked like, oh, how they paying him all this money? It was like, yeah, yeah, he's kind of worth that. And I think they brought him in thinking Max is already ultra energy, high level dude. And then you bring in Christian Wilkins. If he brings what he brought in 23 to Miami with him, oh, what are we talking about? Like, what are we talking about? We're gonna have two of the most dominant guys, like crush in the middle, Max off the edge. I get it. But, you know, money becomes a factor and Christian, we couldn't stay because of the money, but it's not from a lack of love. I think a lot of Dolphin fans still love Christian. And I know he's injured right now. We wish you guys speed, but welcome to the top 25 list. And finally, we are going to jump into a couple comments. Really, I want to focus on the first comment because this is probably going to go long in terms of my response. But there was a hypothetical trade put out here on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, involving the Dolphins trading Devon A. Chan to Chicago. Now, Chicago has DeAndre Swift right now, solid running back, not elite, definitely not bad, solid. But the whole idea was that what the Dolphins really consider moving off Devon Achane. We did a story a few weeks ago about, like a few episodes ago, about how Devon is like a cornerstone type player for the Dolphins. He's a guy we can build around. He's a guy we should really put resources into, all that stuff, right? But historically, running backs of his stature, him like the Darren Sproles types, they don't have long careers. They have really amazing peaks where it's like, hey, for a year or two, awesome. And then at like 26, 27, where are they? Like, where'd you go? Remember Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Where is he? Like, does he play? And now he's been injured. But I'm saying, I remember when he first came to the team, he was part of that amazing LSU squad with Joe Shiesty and Justin Jefferson. All those guys were all on the same team. And I remember they were like, man, they got Clyde Edwards-Helaire with Mahomes. And then his first year was like, yo, it's pretty good. And then all of a sudden it was just like, okay. Like he just kind of faded away. Now Devon has obviously more talent. He's has a higher ceiling. But like most of our guys, his game is mostly predicated on speed. And he's not the biggest guy in the world. And I can see him playing for a longer period of time. But his most dominant time is probably going to be in his first 3 or 4 years. And then, the wear and tear of being a running back. It's the thing. We all remember Zeke his first couple years in the league. Zeke was jumping over people at 230 pounds. Like he was doing all this stuff. And then Jerry Jones is like, I got to get that boy a contract. And they gave him all this money, $90 million as a running back. Crazy. Reset the market, all that stuff. Then what happened? Zeke just started going downhill. Christian McCaffrey for a 2 or 3 year run. Like he was really good his last year with him and Cam. Then he went to San Francisco and was easily number one player in fantasy. Of course, RB1. But people was like, Christian's not the biggest guy in the world. And it's like, yeah, but he really conditions his body. His dad played in the league, Big Ed McCaffrey, blah, blah, blah. And then the injuries started kicking in again. And now it's like, who is Christian McCaffrey? Is he going to be back next year? Is he ever going to be the same? Like, he might play, but he's going to be the same guy again. And I think the question is, when you have a back like Devon, is he a 5-year back that's like, we get the most out of him and then let the chips fall where they may? Or is he a 10-year guy? Because I would say like his ceiling would be a Marshall Falk type. But to me, Marshall Falk himself is a unicorn. I don't think because he was literally the best at all the things he was doing. You can keep him in on third down for run protection and all that stuff. Obviously, he was an amazing receiver. And of course, between the tackles, the right amount of shifty, the right amount of power, the right amount of explosion. I'm a big Marshall Falk guy. Just full disclosure, I got Marshall Falk football cards. I think he's awesome. But also on the field, he was. He was great with the Colts and with the Rams. People don't even talk about his days with the Colts. That's how good Marshall Falk was. My point is, if that's the ceiling, then that's like an 8 to 10 year good run. And then you fall off the map. More likely, I guess a better comp would be a Reggie Bush type, where Reggie's first couple of years with the Saints was like super, super explosive. And I love Reggie's time with the Dolphins. Y'all know I'm a Reggie Bush fan over here. But I know what we expected from him initially was to be at that level like his career, and he had peaks of being at that. I thought he was actually pretty good with Detroit. Reggie's career a little underrated, I think. But if it comes down to not obviously this upcoming year, but let's say next year, right? His yards per carry go from 7.5 to 6.6 to now like a little over 5, and then it's like in the mid fours. Yes, his breakout speed is still there. Yes, of course, he's still a home run hitter. But do we look and say, hey, instead of paying this guy possibly 15 plus $1 million, we got a second round pick, a handful of good running backs in the draft. That guy kind of reminds me of Devon. Maybe not as fast, but about 215. You know, he had a timeshare of carries in college, so he didn't get the 400 carries. He got the 200 carries. Played the Big 12 schedule, you know what I'm saying? So he didn't get as much more spread option looks. Like you can kind of convince yourself, is this the guy that we need to pay going forward? Like I think Jahmyr Gibbs is the guy you pay going forward. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is I think he's that level special. Would I pay Brees Hall at this point? Probably not. Bijan probably. Like it fluctuates because you can say, well, Brees Hall's so amazing. Yes, he could obviously be, but do I want to take the bet? I like Devon more than Bijan, or not Bijan. I like Devon more than Brees, but I do want to see it for another year, and I do want to see how he plays with extra running backs in the backfield. And if it's like a situation where we're only giving him 10 to 12 carries, how can we then pay him top of the market running back money? You kind of see where I'm saying? Like, it's not about is he good enough to get that kind of deal. It's if I'm paying you that much money, then you are the reason why our offense goes. You are the engine that could for our offense. You can't be, to me, one of four running backs and then make top five running back money. That's kind of where I am on that. So I don't blend. Now that trade for the Bears was ridiculous. It was like like Cole Kmet and um, DeAndre Swift and like a third round pick. I'm like, I don't want that. That package was nothing to me. But the idea that is he like untradeable? I don't think he's untradeable. I don't think anybody on the team really is untradeable at this point. But it would have to be a trade that we have good value for. I would hope he would just want to stay with the team and take some kind of hometown discounts and stay. That would be great. But there would be a conversation to be had after this year. Do we extend him? Do we let him play one more year out? Do we let it see what the market does? I am curious about it because I haven't even thought about him being traded until I saw that post, and I was like, "Will we trade Devon? Didn't we just talk about him being untradeable?" I was like, "Well, like a 200 and 205 pounds smaller running back who already had concussions. Do you want to bet 5 more years on that?" And I was like, "Hmm, I don't know." So it's an interesting question, ridiculous trade proposal, but I think the question of whether you keep going with them or not, interesting one. That's one that we will think about, I guess, a year or two from now, but we'll see how that goes. But as always, guys, thank you for tuning in to Dolphins Daily. We appreciate the love and support. Thank y'all for the likes and subscribes. You've been killing it lately. We'll see you next time on Dolphins Daily. Peace.